Instate TV. I'm executive editor Michael Johnson. I'm joined today by Maggie Moran. She's the managing party of Kivvit. And our audience and our readers know you, but they don't know Kivvit. So explain what happened here.
Sure. Well, about 4 years ago, we started Public Affairs in New York City and New Jersey, and the goal was to take really difficult client challenges and create a public communications platform to really move outcomes. And knock on wood, that's gone so exceedingly well. We have a tremendous group of people that are partner out of Chicago, a firm called ASGK, which was originally founded by David Axelrod. We've now merged and created one national firm. So it's really exciting. We work everywhere from the space of labor unions, corporations, issues that we care about. I mean, everything you could think of across the board. And I think we're just a really unique group because we're just really, really immersive. We're sort of side by side with our clients. It's a labor of love more than it is a job.
That's interesting. And I know you were based in New Jersey, New York, Miami, DC, and
Chicago.
Chicago was ASGK. They're mostly Chicago, right? So you're, I guess, expanding into Chicago a little bit, or merging with them to get into that too.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that dynamic, because I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic of democratic politics, where you have New York, New Jersey,
Yes.
Chicago, and obviously DC is where everything's happening. Talk a little bit about how that works, and how having a partner in Chicago kind of helps make you more of a national firm.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about where some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies are based and otherwise, our markets are picked strategically for those purposes. So having sort of a Chicago outfit, and that's been there for 13 years, ASGK, with David Axelrod and Eric Sedler. They added the Washington, D.C. office second, and then our New York office, they're our sister company, and financed our original start. And then just recently, this past year, we opened up Miami. So when you look at the actual country, and you think about if you sort of want to have a national reach and a national landscape, these are the places you want to be. I think for corporate America, the reality is they need really smart strategies in blue states.
Yeah.
So that's unique in the sense of having that kind of platform in New York, New Jersey, and Illinois. I think for other groups, there's just so much activity in states of this size.
Yeah, and I know you, and I know obviously Public Affairs. I know your work mostly for a lot of what's happened in Albany, and you've been focused in state issues. Do you see this kind of as a national, state, local? You can do all kind of things going forward. Or
yeah, I think that's sort of exactly it. It's how do you have really unique local intelligence of how media, advocacy, business, labor, of how it all works together. And then being able to give the client a national reach with that platform. So I think we have really exceptional practitioners both in media, formerly in campaigns, political campaigns. We tend to bring a lot of political campaign type tactics into the public affairs stratosphere. And so what that does is it allows clients to spend money in really impactful ways, really refined universes, and allows clients to think about issues from a direction of sort of formally how we used to think about it in political campaigns. So what used to be opposition research is now competitive analysis, right, in terms of what you want to get done, what somebody else wants to get done. And at the end of the day, the question is, how do you create an impetus for change? So if your objective is X, how do you actually create some level of movement around why that change is necessary, and who are the right people to get involved and move to that change? And then how do you get the public to influence the decision makers? So from our perspective, I think with these 5 offices and this kind of a talented team, we can have pretty impressive reach across the country.
And finally, on this point, Kivvit. Why Kivvit? What does it mean?
So Kivvit is it was an Alaskan word, and it means valuable and durable. So one of the things that we provide, we think, is really unique insights, so we think we're uniquely valuable. And durable, in our experience, as folks came to us initially on a project, they then kept us as a strategic consultant moving forward for any other endeavor they had. So we view that as sort of a really terrific name to sort of encompass it. I think the other issue was, the previous names were about certain individuals, whether it's myself or Eric Sedler or David Axelrod, and the firm is much bigger and broader than that now, and the entire team is building the firm. So we didn't want to be about initials anymore. We wanted to have something memorable and catchy. We went through a whole branding process that was painful, but it's exciting for me. I mean, I was born and raised in New York, and this is an incredible market to be operating in, and just a great state, as you know, for politics and public policy. So it's a lot of fun.
Interesting. All right, so I want to talk to you also about the Democratic debate. This was the first debate of the Democratic primary. You worked for Bill Clinton in '96. You worked for Al Gore in 2000, and you're a Hillary Clinton supporter. So how do you feel she did in the first debate?
I thought she did exceptionally well. I think I believe that Hillary Clinton is always held to a higher standard. I just genuinely do. And I don't know that in life and in politics, the public holds men to the same standards that they hold women. I thought she performed really, really well. I thought she was aggressive. I thought she was engaged. I thought, by the way, there was a level of decorum to that debate that they don't have on the Republican side. I mean, the Republican debates are like watching a clown car or a train wreck or a reality TV show, right? But I thought the Democratic side really made a specific effort to get at the issues, because people actually want to know what you're going to do for their life, you know?
And I want to talk about that concept you raised of Hillary Clinton being held to a higher standard. Do you think she's held to a higher standard simply because she's a woman, or because she's Hillary Clinton, she's the former First Lady, she's the, someone who's been in people's eye for a long period of time? And I mean, she's probably, outside of the president, even maybe more than the president, the most famous politician that everyone knows has an opinion of her. So do you think that's why she's held to a higher standard, or do you think just the women in general are held to a higher standard?
I think women in general are, but I do believe for Hillary it's a combination of things. It's a combination of factors. I think people compare her as to her style versus her husband's style. Mm-hmm. They compare, but I think when you really look at sort of this race, she is as progressive as they come. So the sort of feel the burn movement, in my view, is a little bit shallow, since he's been part of the establishment for 30 years as well. And from my perspective, you couldn't find a more qualified candidate to run this country. And I think it's time for women to have a chance to run this country. We've seen what men can do. Let's give a woman a chance to do it.
And obviously Bernie Sanders has had large crowds, is doing well in the polls. He's leading in some New Hampshire polls. Do you think this continues? Do you think this is, obviously someone who's followed the Democratic electorate for a long time, sure, pays very close attention to it? Do you think that maybe they're just, this is kind of like Hillary and the anti-Hillary type divide that we saw kind of with President Obama when he ran in 2008 originally? Like, there was kind of the Hillary side, and there was then also like kind of an anti-Hillary side. Is that what you're seeing, do you think? Or do you think that there's actual substantive differences between what Hillary kind of talks about being a pragmatic progressive versus someone like Bernie Sanders, who clearly feels that the current status quo in Washington is not working for middle class and lower income people? I
think at the end of the day, this is going to be the heart of the question. First of all, I think it's very positive for the Democratic Party to have a robust and active debate. And I think there's a lot of unrest among rank and file Democratic voters as it relates to income inequality, access to higher education, a series of really critical quality of life issues. I love the fact that Hillary's a progressive pragmatist. I mean, I think in large measure that's what Andrew Cuomo is too. Because, look, we can all aspire to the greatest ideals we want in the world, but if you can't actually get them passed and put them into law, and Washington seems incapable of that right now, then it doesn't work. I mean, I think that's what Governor Cuomo's done so well here on the state level, is you got to have a level of progressive pragmatism. You can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So I think, look, in a primary, we all have these aspirational values we want to get to, and it's important to voice them and talk about them and debate them. But Hillary Clinton knew health care was a right, not a privilege, before it was popular to say it should be a right, not a privilege. She was a feminist before that was popular again, as it is becoming popular again today. She's already put out a plan on higher education. I think without question she's quite focused on how you really get at the heart of these income inequality issues. So I think Bernie Sanders is doing an appropriate job of representing his base. But I think that, to me, it is a little bit hypocritical to sort of go after the establishment when you've been the establishment for 30 years.
And finally, on this point, you talk about the divisiveness in Congress and divisiveness in D.C. And Hillary Clinton, obviously, throughout her history, has been somewhat of a divisive figure. At least Republicans have obviously targeted her. So do you feel like a presidency under her would continue this kind of mold that we've seen? Is that a concern at all? Because, obviously under President Obama, it's been a very divisive Congress relationship between the president and the Congress in a lot of ways.
Well, what's so interesting to me about Secretary Clinton at this point, right, is serving as Secretary of State. She's someone who knew how to bring really, really difficult issues and parties together. She served in the United States Senate. She was First Lady while her husband worked with Newt Gingrich, right, and John Kasich, obviously, to create a balanced budget agreement in 1994. So this is not someone who's unfamiliar with understanding how to bring really challenging issues to a table when you have a level of partisanship and sort of politics. I think what's amazing about Hillary Clinton is when elected on day one, she can be an impactful and effective president. I don't think there's any question that she would know what to do, what levers to push, how to create a strategic plan that gets them there, and how to figure out compromise. As much as we all want these terrific, perfect liberal ideals to get done, in the end of the day, progressive pragmatism can actually help the people of this country versus talking about ideas that we may never be able to get to.
And then one final point, I know but last spring in Albany, you guys had a push, or in public affairs, before you guys were Kivvit, you had a big push to get prevailing wage as part of the 421A tax abatement. You guys convince the governor to make to let the labor side and the real estate side get together and try to hammer out that deal. Now there is some questions about whether that's legal, and there's some talk about that. But where is that discussion right now? Because I think we're coming up in a couple months where they're supposed to have an agreement.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was a privilege to work on that campaign, and ironic in some ways because we work with the real estate industry as well. And I have great respect for them as well, obviously. I think, look, in the end of the day, people like Steve Spinola and Rob Spire and Gary LaBarber care deeply about this city. I mean, deeply about this city. So it would not surprise me at all if they can identify a compromise and how to move forward. The obvious issue here is that, if they don't, that the program would expire. And I think that would be a tragedy across the board. So I think the level of intent is what's going to matter here to get a deal done, because I do think they can. And I think as it relates to their commitment to New York City, there's no question that they all have the best interests of this city at heart. So as those negotiations really start to kick off in the short term here, it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of months how they progress. If it's a true negotiation, guys like you are going to be frustrated because we're not going to hear much about it on the outside, right? So a firm like ours that runs a campaign like that, we're not involved in negotiations, obviously, just the main parties are. But my expectation is that they're going to have a very lively and engaged conversation. But at the end of the day, I think there is a way for this city and this state to commit to building more affordable housing units, actually build those affordable housing units, right? And to pay a middle class wage while you're doing it.
That's great. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. And if you do hear something, please let us know. Maggie Moran, managing partner of Kivvit, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.